Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host John, and today here on the channel we're going to be talking about Hard Boiled and its brand new Shout Factory 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't know anything about the film Hard Boiled and you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead right now. So back in 1992, not only was I born, but John Woo delivered to us his last film that he would ever make in Hong Kong, the last time he would ever work with Chow Yun-fat, and that movie is Hard Boiled, considered one of the greatest action films of all time. And after rewatching this movie for the first time in at least 17 years, I'm gonna say, because the last time I watched this was with a buddy of mine in high school who really liked action movies and really liked martial arts films, which I've told you guys in the past, not a really big martial arts film fan. So I wonder if I just kind of roped this in with those movies, because I haven't revisited this movie since then. I've only seen a few of John Woo's films that he made in Hong Kong, and really, that's where the bread was buttered. That's really where people took notice of John Woo, and that's the reason why he came to the United States and made movies like Face Off, Hard Target, and of course Mission Impossible 2, which is probably his most famous. I also really like Broken Arrow, has a really good score. Christian Slater and John Travolta, they had great chemistry. John Woo and John Travolta work again on Face Off, and because of that, like John Travolta would call John Woo One Take John, which is pretty funny because apparently a lot of people consider John Woo to be like the Stanley Kubrick of action movies, but the difference is he could do this stuff in like 1, 2, 3 takes, which is absolutely insane. When you watch this movie, it's even more surprising because obviously the action is what stands out. If you've ever seen any montages featuring classic action sequences, there's probably 2 or 3 just from this movie. Not just the hospital sequence, but the opening scene in that tea house, which apparently was closing down, and they decided, we have to film here. And they filmed there for about a week, just kind of improvising, coming up with new shots. The classic one, the one that always stands out and is still absolutely incredible and got my juices going while watching the movie, is when he slides down with the 2 pistols down the stairway, shooting at the guy. It just looks so fucking cool. I mean, everything looks so cool in this movie. The interiors, the smoky interiors, especially that tea house in the beginning. Like, that's just one of the best set pieces in film history. And of course, it being a real tea house, it stands out. But you're looking at the chairs, the floors. My God, just an incredible opening sequence. One of the best opening sequences in film history. And then, of course, the rest of the movie has to follow that up. Yeah, there's some great action pieces throughout, but you start to actually care about these characters. You care about the character Tequila that is based on a lot of like Dirty Harry and those kind of cop characters that John Woo liked. John Woo was mostly making like gangster films, and he decided, let's make one more from the perspective of the cops. Of course, the criminals are front and center as well. Johnny Wong is one of the best villains. I mean, he's just over the top, chewing scenery, having a blast. When he kills Uncle Hoy at the beginning of the movie, and this is kind of where our other protagonist, Alan, comes into play. Alan, we think, just works under Uncle Hoy. Now he's going to be working under Johnny Wong, but it turns out, just like in the very beginning of the movie, there's a lot of undercover cops that are involved in a lot of these like gangs, and they don't tell the other cops. They don't tell people like Tequila, who accidentally kills a cop early in the movie because he doesn't know he's a cop. He thinks he's a fucking criminal, and he just saw one of his only good friends get killed because Tequila, yeah, he's a very hard-boiled cop, hence where the name comes from. He used to be a real nice guy, real charming, kind of lighthearted guy, but, just like the rest of us, like life, it hardens us. And he even asked at one point, too hard? Like, am I gone too far? But, after seeing the things he's seen, and, you can't really get too close to anybody, you can understand why he's so hardened. But Alan's stuck. He even says at one point in this movie that he just wanted to be a regular cop, a uniform cop, but that wasn't available when he was going through the school or the academy or whatever they call it there. So he unfortunately got saddled with this job, and he doesn't even feel like a cop anymore. He's like, at one point, he forgot his own birthday, and he's like, I'm not even sure if I'm who I am anymore. I've spent so much time being a gangster, and it's like, yeah, that really wears on your mind. And you can see the conflict between him and Tequila, but also the understanding that, they have the same job, and their bosses aren't necessarily going to take care of them, so you got to do what's best for you. But he wants to do good, and like that's why he got involved in this. And it's a very complex story when it comes to these characters, and I really appreciate that. Of course, again, the action is what stands out.
Well, for me, the action is the juice.
There's 3 huge set pieces in this movie. The tea house in the beginning, the warehouse in the middle, which, by the way, features one of my favorite shots when the motorcycles are in like that kind of like V pattern with the one Mercedes in the background flying through, green lighting left and right. Just fucking beautiful. And then, of course, at the very end, in the hospital sequence, when, carrying the baby around, you see it on the movie poster. It's very, very, very famous. But that whole sequence is so well done with some absolutely incredible shots. When you see how they made this movie, not even using like a steady cam, using like just regular handheld, and again, doing it in like 1, 2, 3 takes, just blows you away. I was watching it yesterday morning, and we don't really like to talk about like, the setting that we watch movies in, but I really do think it makes a difference. I came home from walking the dogs, put this movie in the 4K player, poured a cup of coffee, and I just sat there and I'm like, this is why I love movies. It's movies like this. Couldn't take my eyes off the screen for the entire time. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, which might seem a little long for an action movie, but I could have done more. I just absolutely love my time. And it's sad because I guess this is the end of like John Woo in Hong Kong, and you get all the John Woo-isms that he would take to the United States. But if you listen to people who are really more familiar with his Hong Kong films than I am going to fix that though, by the way. I'm going to get all of his films from Hong Kong on 4K with these Hong Kong cinema classics. I have to, because after watching this movie again, I'm like, I'm really missing out on some great fucking cinema here. And this was just one that knocked my socks off. I mean, he does all the classic John Woo stuff, but he just makes people look so cool. A character walking into a library, grabbing a gun out of a freaking book, that's just so badass. Like, and they put it in slow motion. They use a lot of slow motion. Apparently John Woo wasn't going to use slow motion. The guy loves slow motion. Of course he's going to do that. The double pistols. Like, he just knows how to do action probably better than everybody else. Now, given when he carries over the United States, his action always looks good. It's just a lot of his plots and stories can be a little bit silly. And I guess, in this movie, you're kind of hooked on the characters. You really do care about the characters. Like I was saying about the one character of Alan, the screenplay is good enough. Like, later he finally gets to pretend to be a cop in uniform. Even though he's a cop, he's still kind of pretending. So he gets to actually be the person he wanted to be. Even if it's for a brief second, it's not even real. But that's just really good screenwriting. And one of the screenwriters for this movie actually tragically passed away at 44 years old, and they weren't even done with the screenplay yet. That was another thing with John Woo. They were shooting scenes before they had even finished the screenplay. So for this to come out and be as good as it is, and for it to become an all-time classic in the action genre, is something else that just truly stands out, and just it really does speak to the direction of John Woo. The guy never stops working. I saw a movie that he did a couple of years ago. I think he even did the American remake of The Killer, which is absolutely wild. Not the first director to do that, to remake their own film, but it's just like, there's something about a movie in time. This movie still very much feels like the early 1990s. The film stock, the way it looks, the clothes people are wearing. Like, you can't just remake something like that. We talk about it all the time with movies like Total Recall, and even now with The Running Man. You can't replicate something like that. You have to make it be different enough. So hopefully the new Running Man is different enough, because I'm going to be seeing that. But this movie, it's an almost perfect film. It's absolutely a perfect action film. I had a blast watching this movie. If you haven't seen Hard Boiled, I can highly recommend it. And just like me, there's a lot of other films from John Woo's classics that he made in Hong Kong that I still need to check out. I've seen a few of them, but I got to definitely make sure I finish banging out that list, because I just, like I said, I had an amazing time. It restored my faith in cinema. I'm like, this is why I watch movies, for movies like The Killer. I just had a fucking blast, and I really think you guys are gonna have a blast too if you haven't seen this one. Just great action. We'll never get another movie like this. It's really sad, just because, you know what, with CGI and effects being what they are, you couldn't do a lot of that stuff in 1992, and it's like a crutch now, and we'll never get back to that. But you can still go back and watch Hard Boiled, and if you want to, maybe you'll want to pick up this 4K Blu-ray from Shout that we're going to be talking about right now. Well, here it is, Hard Boiled on 4K Blu-ray. This is from Shout Factory. It's, I think, the last thing I will ever be getting from Shout Factory's website. Obviously now they've teamed up with Groove. I was a little worried because I had a couple things pre-ordered through Shout's website, one of them being Hard Boiled and The Killer, which is coming out in early December. So I was like, I hope I still get them. I did, and Groove even pointed out now that they'll be distributing Shout Factory stuff that, even if you pre-ordered it through Shout's website, it'll still come to you. So I don't really have too much worry about The Killer getting to me, which I am looking forward to so much, especially after rewatching Hard Boiled for the first time in like 17 years. Just had an absolute blast with it. When I first saw this 4K Blu-ray, I was like, I gotta see it. I gotta see those John Woo films on 4K Blu-ray. But I was like, Hard Boiled with that green casing, I don't know if I necessarily love that. Now, Arrow is teaming up, I believe, with Shout and doing, the Hong Kong classics over there as well. So, you could have gone with different packaging, but I decided to go with this, and it's kind of like an Arrow Video fat box, honestly, a morbidly obese box, but, it's a little bit slimmed down. Maybe it's on the Ozempic, but it's got this green base, which I am not a big fan of. I'm not a real big fan of green with yellow. No offense to the Packers fans out there. Just not my thing, and I don't really think of green and yellow when I think of hard-boiled either. Actually, when you come inside, like, this is more of what I think of, like, with hard-boiled, and I would have liked the exterior case to look like that. Now, given very minor complaints. It also came with a poster if you ordered it through Shout's website. Now, I just have a ton of these posters that I've ordered through Shout's website with absolutely no space to, hang them. So maybe one day in the future, if I have more space, I will. But I got like 12 posters sitting over there. Even came with some nice reading material, good paper stock, thick paper stock. Smells good. Smells like Arrow Video stuff. Maybe not exactly like Arrow Video stuff, but still very, very good. I appreciate that. The exterior artwork on this is not reversible, so you just have the movie poster, and it's a 3-disc set. You're going to have the 4K Blu-ray, the Blu-ray, and then you're going to have a bonus features Blu-ray, which, I just absolutely love. But the 4K and then a downscaled version, the 1080p, you will have numerous language options. You can watch this in Cantonese with English subtitles, or you can even watch it with an English mono track, which is actually the route I chose to go. Now, that's going to be sacrilege to a lot of people. I've been listening to film critics for years who's like, you can't use the dub. The dub doesn't sound very good. Well, I have a bit of a vision problem, so if there is a dub available, chances are I'm going to use that just because I don't want to be sitting on top of the TV trying to read. Given I have no problem with subtitles, I'll watch plenty of movies with subtitles too, but if you can actually make it available and have it with a English option so that I could check it out without the subtitles, I always appreciate that because I want to be able to pay attention to everything. But again, a lot of people consider that sacrilege, but as somebody with a vision disability, it's a lot easier for me, so I would rather always have an English track just so I could watch it. And of course, the other reason being is I can't make the subtitles bigger on a lot of this stuff. The Panasonic player, it's a little bit different from the Sony player. With the Sony player, you can always make the subtitles bigger. It's something you can do mostly like on Amazon Prime and Netflix. You can always make the subtitles bigger. It's actually one thing that kind of frustrates you a little bit about the Criterion Collection is that their font for their subtitles is a little bit too small. I would love some better accessibility options just for people with little disabilities out there, like, for the hearing and the visually impaired. Something that I would like to champion a little bit more of because we all like to watch films, and sometimes watching a movie with small subtitles, it becomes more of a chore and actually takes away from your enjoyment of it. So luckily for me, even though I'm not going to say that the voice acting on the dub is the best, it's still very helpful, and it helps me to appreciate all the great action sequences without having to try and read a little bit. So that's something I always like to point out just because it's so very rare we get those, and especially they've been taking them away because so many people have complained about it just because of the Akira audio track is absolutely a terrible dub, but I'll watch it with the dub again just to avoid subtitles. I can always overlook the bad voice acting and the bad dubs because I understand, but a lot of people, just like when you turn It's a Wonderful Life into color, they're like, oh my god, you're ruining film. It's like, no, sometimes we could try things. You'll always have the original version. We can always give options. That's always what I ask for. Give us options. Give us options in the audio tracks. Give us the old audio while also giving us a brand new audio track. No. That's always stuff that I want. Not every studio is willing to do it, though. Now, Shout did give us all these options. Now, all these audio tracks, though, are mono track, and you might be a little bit disappointed if you're hoping for a brand new Dolby Atmos track or even a 5.1 where it's going to be very well mixed and making great use of your speakers. No, we didn't get that here. And, that's fine. It's an older film, and maybe they didn't want to remix the audio track. I'm not entirely sure what the reason was or if any of the other Hong Kong cinema classics are going to have the exact same audio tracks. Not entirely sure, but I still really did appreciate the audio on here. It just didn't knock my socks off. Like I said, I was listening to it a dub, but still the audio was very good for what it was. I do think it would have been nicer to get a Dolby Atmos track or, just something a little bit better mixed, but I'm not too disappointed by that because, again, haven't seen this film in a long time. And then obviously what most people are looking for are those visuals. How are those visuals? Well, to me, they were pretty much stunning for the most part. There are some scenes later in the hospital where I think the saturation was a little bit too low and the white balance was a little bit too high, and it's a little off-putting because it doesn't look like the rest of the 4K Blu-ray. And the rest of the 4K Blu-ray with Dolby Vision and HDR10 looks phenomenal. Like I said, that opening sequence and the tea house, just noticing all of the materials on their clothes. When one character, actually it's Tequila, when he gets flour on his face, you could just see the little bits of details, stuff you've never noticed before. The floor, because the set design is so well done and the way everything is lit and the smoky interiors, all that stuff has lent itself amazingly to the 4K Blu-ray format. So other than some minor visual flaws, it's a huge step up from any way I've ever seen seen this movie, given I haven't seen this movie, like I said, since the DVD era, but man, it looks like night and day compared to that. I would imagine, though, it's probably not the world's biggest jump from the Blu-ray, but again, I really don't know, so I can't say for sure. But looking at this as somebody who hasn't seen this movie in a very long time, I just thought it looked absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, you guys know how much I love special features, how much I love bonus features. Well, they gave us a whole separate bonus features disc. Now, there is no making of documentary on here, but there are so many interviews, including a 42-minute one with John Woo, that you'll be able to fill in all the blanks about the making of this movie. The guy who plays the main villain, Johnny Wong, he has an interview as well. There's also a 15-minute looking back on with a film critic, which I think his name was Gordon Hendricks. I thought that was really good as well, kind of exploring the work of John Woo. So there's a lot of good extras on here, again, just in one big list, one master list. I love that, just because it makes you feel like you got something extra for your purchase. And overall, this is a very good release from Shout Factory. I would say the most disappointing thing is the audio, and I think a lot of people might get a little bit disappointed with that. But if you're somebody who loves these movies, or you're revisiting these movies for the first time in a long time like I am, I mean, you can't do any better than this. They really sprung for all the bells and whistles when it comes to Hard Boiled. The packaging, while I'm not a big fan of the green, it's still phenomenal. It still feels pretty premium. The visuals are a huge upgrade. They gave us 3 discs, so you get a 4K Blu-ray and a bonus features Blu-ray. And those visuals, they're going to stand out. Some of the best of 2025. In a year where we've been getting spoiled with visuals, I have to point it out again. A lot of time we kind of get the shaft when it comes to visuals. They're like, it's a little bit of an upgrade. But now it's very noticeable upgrade. And if it's not, it's something that kind of stands out. Like The Breakfast Club. I like that movie, but the 4K just did not stand out in comparison to other 4K Blu-rays like Hard Boiled. This is something that is actually worth your time and money. If I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Hard Boiled on 4K Blu-ray a 9 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys. So if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel, like Harvey Scott, Ben Rondo, and John Doe Juggalo, you could do that. Or you could even bump it up to the channel directors tier, like Uncle V, Nicholas Head, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, Kevin Kruger, and Stone Gasman. Or if you'd like to, bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato, and have your own choice video every other month. Look for the video of the top 10 Kurt Russell films coming out pretty soon for Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you have no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in the streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.